So today we'll be taking a look at a scenario where Persindia defeated Afghanistan. Now in the historical timeline, Persindia had fought Afghanistan back in episode 26, right after World War I, but Persindia had got pretty much humiliated by Afghanistan because of Persindia not really being so strong after the war. But what if that never happened? Well, in this video we'll be taking a look at this exact scenario, so let's waste no time and get straight into this video. First of all, for Persindia to win this war, we will have them wait a bit before they invade Afghanistan. They will invade it a couple months later than they did in the historical timeline, for, maybe for them to prepare their invasion and to not really go unprepared in Afghanistan. And this is what's gonna allow Persindia to immediately go ahead and push into their territory, and Afghanistan wasn't really seeing this coming. And because of this, Afghanistan will really start to lose at the beginning. Now granted, Afghanistan is Afghanistan, they are like the graveyard of empires, so they will decide that they do not want to get conquered by Persindia, of course, so they will start to heavily push against Persindia. But even then, Persindia is pretty prepared for this war and they have a lot of morale, and they will put the main focus of this war on the capital as they push through here and they try to avoid the mountainous areas. That doesn't really work extremely well, as we see the Afghan forces pushing them back in here, but Persindia is heavily pushing here at the capital. They encircle it and their big plan to defeat Afghanistan is to pretty much starve the capital. So because of this, Persindia will get to pushing Afghanistan more into here, and eventually, after pretty much all the resources run out of their capital, Persindia will go ahead and take the said capital, and after a couple weeks of fighting, we'll see that Afghanistan will surrender over to Persindia. Thus, Persindia wins this war. And in the peace treaty, we see that Persindia will go ahead and fully annex Orange Afghanistan, erasing them from the map, and with this Persindia had won a war right after losing a world war. But this goes to show that Persindia isn't weak, they are still strong, and they still have potential to reform their massive empire. This will spark a lot of expansionist and imperialist ideas in Persindia, and because of this, a couple months later, after the invasion of Afghanistan, we'll see that Persindia will yet again come ahead and decide to invade yet another country, this one being the Green Team. Now the Green Team had lost World War I together with Persindia, so the Green Team is also pretty weakened, but the Green Team hadn't really lost anything. They have pretty much just made a white peace, but here in this war with a way more prepared Persindia, the Green Team will fall over in here and they will immediately decide to agree to peace with Persindia. And in the peace treaty, Persindia will not take that much land, but they will take enough for them to feel good, and they will take these 3 provinces away from Caspia, and Caspia is pretty sad about this. They didn't even lose much land, but they just lost land stupidly, but I guess it's whatever. And that's because Persindia is very happy and now way stronger and way happier. Now with their newfound power, Persindia will finally go into a bit of a rebuilding stage, starting to trade around with their neighbors, as the Great Depression is getting very close to hitting the earth and the world's economy, so that's not good for them. So because of this, they will go ahead and, well, trade with as much countries as they can, and pretty much apply a similar strategy to India to kind of compete with their newfound rival over in here. And now we are gonna have a bit of a time skip of a couple of years, maybe like a decade, and at this time instability in India is growing, with the southern regions over in here with the teal country and the purple country. These regions really want to get their independence. These are like pretty ruthless, and they are like way more along the lines of the Sri Lankan country in here, and these territories will pretty much revolt against India and they will ask for their independence, but India will reject, and because of this we'll have these territories breaking away. And now we will see over in here in these two provinces, with support from Persindia of course, these territories will break away from India, and India is gonna be pretty baffled about this because they didn't want to let them go, but they will pretty much have to. But because of this, we'll have the start of the second Indian Civil War, the first being the one during World War I of course. And immediately as these territories declare their independence, India will go ahead and start to push over into here, as they don't want to let these territories become independent. But look at this, immediately as India starts to push into these rebellions, we'll see that the Persindians will go ahead and also join this war on the side of the rebellions and start to advance into the territory of India, now bringing these two countries yet again at war after they just went to war a couple decades earlier during World War I. And now Persindia is looking to reclaim India, as now they are fighting them again, once again, after many decades. And this time Persindia is ready and they are really determined to retake back their core land over in here. They go over here into the Gudrak Peninsula and they have a very successful battle here against the Indian forces, and they manage to push the Indian forces around here. And we'll now see the Persian forces starting to go around here, trying to take the capital of India in a spearhead, but the spearhead fails and gets pushed back by the Indian forces, as India of course doesn't want to lose their capital. So because of this, they will make that push against Persindia, but because of this, Persindia will still be free to expand over here around the Himalayas. Now of course they can't invade directly through them, but they all go around this region. Even here Persindia will have a bit of some trouble pushing into India, and India will come with some pretty bad counteroffensives against the Persindians, but yet still the Indians are still having quite a bit of trouble pushing the rebellions over into here. As the Cyan rebellion goes into here, they take this, and for the Purple rebellion they go ahead through these territories and they do manage to take this. And India is starting to get heavily weakened as supplies from Mesopotamia are starting to run low, and this is what allows Persindia to go ahead and yet push again through India, through these territories. And for the final blows against India, Persindia will go in here and they will manage to take the capital of India. And after this and a bit more fighting, we will see that India will surrender over to Persindia and agree to peace. And this is the peace treaty. First of all, over here to Persindia and India, will see that Persindia will take this very big amount of land from India, and this weakens India a lot. And also India has to release these two countries over in here, and this leaves India with a very little amount of land. They have lost a lot of land and a lot of power, and with this Persindia is really starting to grow again and to become stronger and stronger. And now they are truly on the grind and on the reform your empire arc. But now over here in Arabia, we'll see the unification of the old empire. The old empire, you know it. But Persindia is very unhappy about this. And with Persindia still like being a major player over in here, they'll kind of rally up all of the countries around them which do not want a repeat of what happened during the Mesopotamian conquests, and get pretty much a bunch of nations to form a coalition against the old empire. These countries in the coalition being none other than Persindia, Caspia, Crete, the Tuaden countries in here, Caucasia, and finally Green France. First of all, over in here, we'll see that Persindia will start to push over through these territories of the old empire into the blue team part that they have taken from them, and immediately getting to push in through the Persian territories of the red team. And the old empire is pretty shocked that this is happening, as they did expect to have enemies but not so many, and they didn't expect the coalition to form so soon. This is pretty much an early version of the coalition of the willing, and this is what leads to Caspia taking all of this territory, while Persindia goes ahead and takes this away from them. And now Caucasia, which although they fought together with the old empire during World War I, they do not want to become part of Mesopotamia, and they do feel like the old empire is gonna try to get them in. So because of this, Caucasia is gonna invade through these territories. And the same situation will be said about the Creticians over in here. They do not want to be part of the old empire at all, so they will do all they can that they can do to not become part of the old empire, thus they will be declaring war on them. They will take Crete, and together with Caucasia they will take the entire coast of the old empire over in here and kick them out of Anatolia. And over in here, the reason why the Green French join is one, they were part of the Triangle Alliance during the Mesopotamian conquests, so they still hold a bit of that vendetta against the old empire, and two, they want to colonize the region, of course, colonialism. So because of this, and because of them being the strongest country around here, they will heavily push through the old empire, which just barely got to form like a couple months ago. And because of this, they will not really be able to fight against the Green French. And of course, because of Green France having pretty much backing from the entire Triangle Alliance, the old empire will have nothing left up their sleeve to do. They didn't even become allies with Russia. Kind of their only ally that they have is the Farmers Union, which of course they will not be able to do much. Therefore, they will not even join this war to help them, because that will pretty much mean instant self-inflicted suicide. So because of this, we'll just see them letting Mesopotamia to die off, as also Caucasia goes ahead and takes that land. Now Caspia, for their final expansions, they'll like take this territory, and we'll also see Persindia go through here. They'll take the capital of the old empire. This is the second time in history they do this, and this truly marks the return of Persindia as a great power in the world, as Persindia now goes ahead and retakes the capital of the Red Team. And after a couple months of fighting, we pretty much just see the old empire getting partitioned in here, with Persindia taking that and the rest being taken by Green France. And with this, we see that the old empire has fallen, and it has collapsed just a couple months after it formed. And this is the peace treaty, and it's a pretty massive one. First of all, to the big one in here, Persindia, they don't take that much land, but they took back their territory over here from the blue team. Caspia goes ahead and takes a bit of the Caspian coast over in here from Mesopotamia. We see that purple Persia gets released back from the red team. Caucasia takes a lot of land from the red team, with a lot of territory over here in the south, plus a lot of coast on the Caspian Sea. Crete pretty much takes all of the Anatolian peninsula. And here the core of the red team remains independent, but they have to release this country in here. And for a bit of the rest of the old empire over in here, to the rest of the territories of the red team and the blue team, all of this territory gets colonized by Green France. And over here, these territories from the blue team, they get split like in the historical timeline after World War III. And this is how the old empire is gonna get split, and Persindia is now back to being pretty much a world power and a very strong country. And for the final event of the video, we'll have Persindia finally go ahead and have a final matchup against India to finally reconquer them and bring them back under their supremacy and their empire, as the Persindian forces will immediately go ahead and occupy the capital of India, and they will kind of use their friendly nations in here to take the Indian coast over into here, take a lot of land over into here. India will not really be able to do a lot of stuff, as Persindia is very prepared. They have showed that they are still a strong country in the world and that they are still capable. When they get around here, a pretty big stalemate will happen, which will then lead to India having a slight pushback against in here. But that's for nothing, as Persindia will be able to once again push through these territories of India, and finally, when they get to this coast, slowly but surely will chop India out, and with this, India will get defeated. And in the peace treaty, we see Persindia fully annexing India once and for all, putting an end to their legacy. And with this, Persindia has reconquered India, has reformed their empire, and with this, Persindia forms the second Persindian Empire. And that will do it for this video on what if Persindia defeated Orange Afghanistan. This evolved from Persindia just winning a simple war against a weak country to them rebuilding their empire, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.